Juni Taisen is not a perfect anime series. It has a lot of flaws. The pacing, the production value, the very tropey and stock characters, and some of the story elements, which I swear to God I've seen like 1,000 times in tons of other anime series. But every once in a while, there are these little glimmers of brilliance that comes from its animation and from its art direction, and it honestly gives me things that I never thought that I'd ever want to see. Like, who would have thought that a zombified corpse, which has been decapitated and has no arms, seeing that thing fight against someone, who would have thought that it would look so awesome? Juni Taisen did it in this episode. There was a whole collective of body parts fighting against Ox and Tiger in this episode. And while it was a short-lived scene, it was downright awesome. It was also followed by an incredibly shocking scene, which I cannot wait to talk about. But that's just like the bottom part of this sandwich. There's a big, beefy bun at the top. And you know what? It was freaking great. The opening of this week's episode of Juni Taisen was inspired, to say the least. I especially love that it was almost kind of like a big middle finger to everyone who's been watching this series. And for the last 2 episodes, we've had this huge, long-winded backstory on the dragon and the snake. It's almost like they're building them up to do something. And in many ways, they still do utilize them. But basically, at the beginning of this episode, spoiler warning, holy crap, Rabbit just outright kills Dragon. And he does it by hopping up into the sky. Because remember, rabbits hop. And this guy's like a superhuman necromantist. So with the use of using Sharyu to give him a big old boost, he actually manages to jump up to the level of the dragon. And he straight up just kills him right there. Cuts him right in half. Obi-Wan killing Darth Maul style, mid-air. The scene was great. I was like, okay, that's probably the last good scene of this episode. We're probably going to get nothing but backstory the rest of the time. And yes, we did get a lot of backstory on Tiger, and it's definitely the most meh part of this episode, but it's still very watchable. However, it completely pales in comparison to the bookend moments of this episode, which really highlight the best elements of Juni Taisen, which is its over-the-top style and its amazing action and direction. It's not going to be the best anime series of all time, especially considering we're almost at the conclusion at this point, and even if they did nothing but non-stop action for the rest of the series, I don't think it's going to save the rest. It just does not work that way. What I will say is, this episode was at least really freaking entertaining, so allow me to simply gush over my favorite parts of this episode right here. So, before we get to that, actually, let's just talk about the Tiger backstory, which I don't even want to talk about that much, because honestly, it's not that interesting. Really, it's sort of like your run-of-the-mill story of what happens to a good, honorable soldier when they're introduced to a real-world battlefield, and they end up having post-traumatic stress disorder, except that the character of the Tiger takes it to this ridiculous new level where she becomes an expert drinker and an expert fighter. She combines them and learns how to use the drunken fist, and pretty much nothing can stop her. She's proven definitely in this episode that she has a lot of freaking power behind her very small frame, so she's definitely a character that you don't want to underestimate. But her overall backstory, like I said, it just dragged on a little too long for me. I mean, the basic gist of it all is that she was a student at this prestigious martial arts school, and they had a certain code or a creed that she had to follow, and when she graduated from this place and no one else could beat her, she'd go off into the world, go to battlefields, and try to make a difference through the use of this martial arts code. However, after seeing the horrors of war, she abandons it, she starts drinking very heavily to basically mask all the pain, and then she realizes that she's amazing at killing people when she's drunk. This combined with her PTSD leads her to go down this constant spiral of suck, where all she does is just go to war, get drunk, wake up, go to war, and get drunk again. It's just kind of stock. It's there, and it does give more motivation to the character, although I'd still like to learn a little bit more why Tiger has some sort of grudge against Ox. Maybe it's to be the best warrior that there is, the best like no one ever was, Pokemon reference. That's the end of Tiger's backstory. I really don't want to talk about it anymore. The other scenes are way too good, and I must talk about them. So, The opening of the episode was great, simply for how absurd and insane it was, because they opened up with Sharyu, who was carrying the severed head of Snake, and then suddenly she just frickin' throws this thing up into the air. And it's insane looking. Like, she does it, like, so fast that there's, like, this giant shockwave that destroys things around her. Now, originally I thought that Rabbit was simply doing this just to do reconnaissance, but it leads actually to this scene where he's actually trying to find out where Dragon is, and since he can fly up in the air, and the head actually flies past him, he can see where he is. Now, this leads to such a well-timed reveal and scene, where we see the head fly past Dragon, and then suddenly it comes back down, and he actually catches it and sees that it's his brother's head. And then you have down on the ground the Rabbit, who had just jumped off of Sharyu, who had given him a push-up into the air. We saw how far she could throw that head. It makes sense that she could throw his body up there. And then suddenly Rabbit just appears right behind Dragon and slices him in half. It is satisfying looking, and it looks so freaking awesome. And after the last 2 episodes of having to suffer through these 2 assholes' backstories, honestly, that moment felt really great. The whole sequence was fantastic, and I was just, like I was saying, there's no way it's going to be able to live up to that for the rest of the episode. Oh no, there's a short skirmish at the very end of the episode, because now we get to see that the Rabbit has control over not just the Snake and the Dragon, but the Snake and the Dragon's body parts. Basically, they're divided into 4 now, with the body, the head, the upper torso, and the lower torso. And seeing this all, you kind of realize how strange this whole series really is, and how ridiculous it is, the fact that these characters can move around and do this. And it's so convenient that the top half has been cut perfectly. Maybe that's actually how it planned it, because since this guy can actually, like, fly around, he doesn't actually need his legs at all, which allows both of these body parts to fight against Ox and Tiger. And that leads to the scene, which, guys, I simply can't do justice. It has got some of the greatest camera sweeps and amazing action sequences that I've seen from just about any anime series. It is short-lived, but man, does it look great. I never thought that they could make that torso missing a head and its arms fighting against someone and look so awesome, but it was so fluid and fun watching it happen. It was just satisfying. And not only was the choreography and everything just really stellar looking, but I love how the actual battle came to a conclusion with the Tiger jumping on Dragon's back, picking up the giant liquid nitrogen tank and just exploding it over everyone, and then they freeze freaking Terminator 2 style. They literally do the same thing that happens to the T-1000 when it gets like covered in all of the liquid nitrogen, where it just like starts to walk out and its limbs start to freeze up and then it breaks and falls over. It's just awesome. Call it an homage, if you will. It was a great sequence. And then there's the shocker, the final shocker, which is a scene that I know a lot of people are going to be talking about, and I have my own personal theory to go along with that, and it's a pretty obvious one, but just hear me out. So, the Rabbit does appear. He confronts the Tiger and the Ox, and they end up getting into a very short scuffle, and I mean very short. They basically do this whole, like, draw Western motion. They get in front of each other, they announce who they are, how they kill. Rabbit jumps right in front of him, and he just gets sliced and diced all to hell. Like, that's it. Rabbit's dead, decapitated, there's nothing left for the character, and it all ends with both Ox and Tiger getting ready to fight each other with no one to get in their way as we get to see the cut-up corpse of Rabbit right there. Immediately when I saw that scene firsthand, I was shocked. I was like, oh man, they're just going to go ahead and kill Rabbit right here after he's done all of this crazy stuff, and firmly establishing that Tiger and Ox are definitely 2 of the strongest characters in the Juni Taisen right now, which is honestly been kind of a shock. I didn't expect much from Tiger before, but getting to see her in this episode and her build-up with her backstory, it honestly worked and did a great job of showing that she is going to be a competent opponent for the Ox, and the fact that they attacked the Rabbit and both just completely sliced and diced him. But here's the thing. Guys, the Rabbit is not dead. There is no way that this character has been killed off. In fact, if you go back and you watch that scene, it's so subtle and oh so fast, where right before he's about to get sliced in half, he bites down on his lip and you see a little bit of blood. And you could just argue that this is just him being psychotic and insane and biting himself and everything. I have a feeling this probably has something to do with his necromancy abilities, either to revive his body himself, or the Rabbit that they were fighting against has not actually been the Rabbit that we've known the entire time. What if the Rabbit this entire freaking Juni Taisen has simply just been another one of the necromantis puppets of the real Usagi? I think that's a pretty interesting theory, and I can't wait to see if it's going to hold any water. What I will say is, this episode had some great moments at the beginning and the end, so what's the rundown on this episode right here? Really, what more can be said? I said it all there in my review. What I will say is, the series still is not perfect, though. Like I said, I think Tiger's backstory went on for way too long, especially for something that they could have given us, like, in the first couple of flashbacks. Like, they really could have cut all that down a lot more and maybe given us a little more action, which I really would have appreciated after a lot of the actionless last couple of episodes. I mean, I'm glad that what we got in this episode looked really cool, especially visually speaking. Like I said, I can't think of too many other anime series that did some of the things they did in this episode that I've seen before. I'm sure they're out there, but still, it definitely left something of an impact on this episode right here. That and the fact that the front and last half of the episode looks so good that everything in the middle just looks kind of meh, just not as good, like not as high quality, and that's really disappointing because those first couple scenes and the ones at the end, they all look really freaking good, guys. Like, seriously, check them out. Even if you don't, like, watch the series, just go, like, YouTube and type in Juni Taisen fight scene and just check it out. It's freaking awesome. That way you can at least see the cool animation. That being said, there's only so many episodes left, and I can't wait to see how they're going to wrap it up and who's going to win, and if there are going to be any more twists and surprises. What I will say is, I like this episode a lot. My only negative is really the middle part of the episode with Tiger's backstory, which wasn't terrible, but like I said, kind of slow. So I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. Check it out, guys. Most importantly, I want to hear from you guys. What did you think of this episode? What did you think of those action scenes at the beginning and at the very end of the episode? And what do you hope to see from the rest of Juni Taisen? Who are your theories on who's going to win? And is Rabbit really dead? Are they really going to kill off that character like that so unceremoniously? Don't we need to learn his backstory? Are we ever going to learn it? I honestly would like to see. Maybe not learning his backstory would make him a more endearing and scary character, kind of like the ones in our favorite horror movies. I'm not really sure. I just want to see a little bit more. That being said, Juni Taisen so far has been pretty good. So, this is me rambling on, but most importantly, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and of course, if you liked the video, give it a like. I'll see you guys next time. And as always, stay down there, baby.